Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the Arboretum Carlo. My name is Eamonn Wall, and today I'm going to give you a demonstration on soft fruit, top fruit, apple trees, and basically salad crops, everything that's easy to grow this time of year. One of the questions we got asked early on is what can I plant now? Everything I'm going to show today, you can plant them now. Some things you might need a little protection, like say tomato plants, you would have to protect them from the frost. And a good way of protecting tomato plants from the frost is either cover them over with some fleece. I think I had fleece over here now. So again, if you have them, especially if you have a glass house don't keep the heat in, so little light fleece, cover them over. All right, I'll come back to tomato plants. One of the questions I was asked, what's the easiest fruit to grow? And the easiest one by far is the strawberry plant. Very easy. I remember growing these when I was a child. The first thing I grew when I was like an 8 or 9 year old was a strawberry plant. And what I'm going to do, that's a plant, one plant. I'm going to put 3 plants into the pot. And the reason I love strawberries, put them into a tall pot, is because they tumble down over. And they're really easy to look after. Tough as boots. Someone asked me, what do you do in the winter? You do nothing, because they're tough. You can leave them outside. They're fully hardy, and they'll work away. So I'm going to put 3 plants into the pot. And then again, just space them out, making the hole there. That's it. Firm them in, and you basically got your triangle there now. And you can see the pot there, I've left it down about an inch. The reason you leave it down a little bit lower is that you can water then, and the water won't run over the side. All right, so they'll actually grow out, and they'll come down over the sides. And come June, when Wimbledon time, you'll have strawberries on it then. If you want to get a bigger crop the following year, some people like to take the flowers off, and then it makes a bigger, stronger plant, and then you'll get loads of extra fruit the following year. But people can't resist the temptation, so that's up to yourself. But if you want to build a stronger plant, take the flowers off, and this year, then you'll get a bigger, stronger plant for next year. Now, this is one, we just got these delivery in today, so couldn't be any easier. Anyone that has a tunnel or a glass house or somewhere you want to hang up, these 3 strawberry plants in the pot here. So all you have to do is just hang them up ready to go. What we're always asked is, what feed do you give strawberry plants? Very easy. Give them a high potash feed like tomato feed. Tomato feed is great for anything that's flowering. So anything that flowers or fruits, use your tomato feed. You can't go wrong with that. And the tomato feed, that's it there. Again, you can water every 10 to 14 days. You will water extra when you're doing the tomato plants. Now, the next one I'm going to show you again, it is a fruit, but it's classified as a vegetable all around the world. The thing is not to put it into your fruit salad. Now, this one here now is super sweet. Questions we're always asked about tomato plants is, which is the best flavour? It doesn't matter which one you grow, it's going to be 10 times better flavour than anything you buy in the shops. The reason being is that you're picking it off the plant, and it's ripened on the plant. When you buy them in the shops, they're actually taken off just as they're about to turn, and then they ripen off the plant, so that you lose the flavour and they don't have that sweetness. So again, the tomato plants we're often asked is, what's the difference between a bush and a cordon? 2 types of tomato plants. The ones that you don't have to pinch out. This one again came in this morning. Then it's a tomato plant. It's a little tumbler. And you don't have to do any side shooting on this. Great in a tub like this, and then it'll tumble down over the side, and you can hang them up. This one here, I'm just going to put 1 plant in. This is a larger plant, Shirley. And Shirley is a tomato, would be a good sized tomato plant, and one plant would be sufficient in the pot. Now I'm just going to pop that in there now. Now, that's it. Notice when I was planting it, I did not touch the tomato plant itself. You don't touch the tomato plant itself, because if you touch the plant, you can actually damage the stem. If you touch the leaves, they will regrow, but never touch the stem. Then just water it in. Things you need to know about watering tomato plants. The biggest mistake most people make watering tomato plants is that they water overhead. When you water overhead, the water remains on the plant. Then if you water in the morning, you can get full sun, it can scorch. Another problem people watering tomato plants is that they water in the evening. And then what happens, the water stays on the tomato plant, and then what happens then is that you get disease on the plant. Typical problems that can go wrong with tomato plants, which are very easy remedy if you just feed them. If you're underfeeding a tomato plant, the lower leaves will go yellow, which is magnesium. So magnesium pulls up through the plant. So that's telling you that you need to give more feed. Nothing else. Don't panic. Another thing that we get people coming into is, and they have a fruit, and the fruit is brown on the bottom of the fruit. That's a sign that you're underwatering. And again, if the fruit splits, it's erratic watering up and down. So again, make sure that you water always in the morning and not to water the foliage. Now, I always say watering tomato plants, you water, I do every second day when it's summer. You can do every 10 to 14 days for feeding, but when I'm feeding, again, the question asked is, when do you feed? When the first flower truss, that's the yellow flowers appear, that's the time to start feeding. And I would give plain water one day, then feed the next day. What many people tend to do is that they read the instructions every 10 to 14 days. And then what happens, they're not given enough feed. So in the hot weather, you need to water more frequent. All right. Now, side shooting, that's another little people always have how to do it. When you're side shooting, just take the label out of this. Ideally, you wait to the plant, the side shoot here, which is between the stem and the leaf coming out here, the branch. You pinch that out. Ideally, you do it in the morning when the plants are turgid, and that's the little side shoot removed. If you don't do that, the plant tends to get straggly and grows all over the place. Now, the handiest thing for support, you can use a bamboo cane. Just put a bamboo cane. You can make a wigwam if you're in a pot like this. Tie them at the top, and that will support the plant. And you train the plant up, keep it growing up. I usually let them grow to about 5 to 6 feet. And that is sufficient for tomato plants to let them grow up it. All right. So again, when it gets to the top, just tie them in, and then when it's at the 6 foot, you just pinch out the top, and then the tomato will put its fruit out then. All right. So that's another easy one to do. So tomatoes, very easy. Now, what I'm going to show you here is salad crops. What I have here in this is what we call a grow table here. And we have the Westland Organic Peat-Free Compost here. So it's they're saying it's really nice open mix and has the bio in it. So basically take up the nutrients and the water very easily. What can happen with a lot of the organic compost that are peat-free, they're not able to lock up the nutrients, but this is able to lock up the nutrients. So it's able to supply the nutrients to your plants when you need them. Now, what I was going to we have this lettuce here, cut and come lettuce, which is great for the likes of these little tubs. Again, you can put your strawberries, you could have your trading tomatoes in this. So what I'm going to do is just cut and come lettuce. Now, make sure it's always wet before you plant them. So, open the corner there, put it in, and that's it. So again, these trays are great value. And I always say this time of year it's great to start off. I always use the tray start off because these are being grown in glass houses. Just do it again like that. And what happens then, you can just cut them as you want them for the salads, and then they'll keep coming along. Now, this one is a spicy one here. Go for that nice thick one here. So again, always make sure the water, squeeze the cell, and then they come out. If they're dry, they'll tend to stick. So again, give them room to grow. And that's it then. Now, if you know you're going to have frost tonight, you can come along and we can put the cover on the grow table. So basically it's like putting a jacket over it. So we just tuck you in then. The grow tables are really handy. Great for starting off crops. You can have the lid then to lock it down. They're available in the nice sage green, and then in the lime and in the charcoal then. Now also what you could be doing at the same time, you could have plants growing on. You can have your packets of seed come along. The cut and come lettuce usually take about 40 days to come on. So while they're growing on, you can have a few seed, and again, stagger them. If you want to put them in little trays and then transplant them, you can do that. You can also use the trays that you've had, grow them on. You can even have that in there and keep them coming on. But 40 days, so that's really quick turnaround. So you keep your salads little and more often is the secret for growing lettuce. All right. Now this time of year again, I have cabbage. All these types of plants can be planted outside now. What we're often asked the questions is, what type of soil do you need for those? Ideally, you like a nice, loam, firm, rich soil. And if your soil is very poor and it has lots of stone in, add organic matter. So you can see at the front here, we have the farmyard manure or multi-purpose compost. Mix those into the soil. They'll enrich it and they'll retain the nutrients then. One I didn't show you here was the Boost. The Boost is a fertilizer going to give you 4 times flowers and fruit. It's a new formulation by Westland. The beauty about this now, unlike many organic peat-free compost, when you go to add the fertilizer, it runs off. This won't run off. It gets locked up into the compost. So again, it's available at the plant roots where they need it. So it's a great idea, is that one. All right. So I think I've covered all the software. Again, we have lettuce here. This is the lettuce heads here. You can plant them out in the garden now. They're quite, and it's going to be a great weekend because the weather's improving, so great time to get out and plant these now. Now I'm going to come down and show you some apple trees. Probably apple trees is a big favourite, and there's a lot of misconceptions about apple tree, how to look after them, how to prune them. This is what we call a 2-year-old apple tree, and the questions we're always asked is, when can I plant them? You can plant anything that's in a pot. You can plant at any time of the year. If it's bare root, that's a different. You plant, say, from November to February. But these are all grown, pot grown, so you can plant them now. What tends to happen when people get a fruit tree, they bring it home and they just cut the top off it. They want to keep it small. They want the ideal size for their garden, and they don't know why they're pruning it. I always say, you only prune the tree when you know why you're pruning. So you're pruning for formation, for fruiting, or for crossing branches, or for dead branches. Now you're probably going to look down here and say, why have I got a brick on the plant there? Now the reason for that is this is what you do for getting more fruit on the plant. When you have vertical wood, you get less flowers on vertical wood. So if you have a horizontal branch like that, you'll get more fruit. And so what you do, when the sap has risen, because you see the green leaves, and the branch then will become flexible. So any time from the spring onwards, you can tie down your branches. Also what you're doing, you're doing formation of the shape of the tree. You can see this branch, they're very close. So the whole idea is to fan the tree out. You keep a leader. That's your leader there now. So he's the boss. Okay, and then you bring this branch down like that, and you tie them down. I've got a brick there, peg, whichever you want. And the beauty about the brick is that you can wind it down. If you want to bring the branch down more, what you do, just turn your brick over, and it'll bring it down then. All right. So having the horizontal wood then will give you more fruit. Now, if we were tying down this branch here now, we come along, and you can see there now, just tying down the branch. So that's shaping it there now. So that's then you would tie this branch down and bring the branch over. See how we're spreading fanning the tree out. So we're giving it structure and shape. Now again, this one here and that one there. Now you obviously might be wondering, what's this round the branch? Now, what that is round the trunk of the tree, I should say, is a rabbit guard. Rabbits love apple trees, and what they will do, they will strip the bark off the tree. And if they strip the bark off the tree, then the nutrients and water can't go up through the tree, and if they come completely around, it can actually kill the tree, or it will actually stunt the tree growing. Questions we're always asked regarding apple trees is, when do I feed them? Feeding is usually in the spring. So when they're in the ground, Grow More is what I would use. It's a general balanced fertilizer. It can be used on anything fruit and anything that's in the ground, like your salad crops, anything like that, your apple trees. So it's a nice balanced fertilizer. And you apply that in the spring. So when I say spring, soil temperature around 7 or 8 degrees. So this week now would be a good time to apply it if the weather keeps the way it is. So it's warming up. So that's regarding feeding them. The next thing people ask regarding apple trees, do I need a second apple tree? And the answer is yes and no, depending. There's always a question like that, because this is a 2-year-old tree and it's one variety on the tree. So you would need a second tree to pollinate the tree. So you can either have a second apple tree, eaten apple, or you can have, say, a crab apple if it's nearby. And often we're asked, what distance? Now, you can't have one in the back garden and one in the front garden, because you need to be able to, the bee needs to go from one tree to the next. So he's not going to go around to the front and to the back. So they would need a second tree. Now, the groups of trees then, they come in early flowering, mid flowering, and late flowering. So when you're buying the trees, you can put an early with a mid or a mid with a late. And generally, most of our trees that we stock are what you call as mid-season, which is bee season. So no matter what you get, you're going to get a pollinator to go with it. Now, back to saying that if you don't have room for these trees, these are a larger tree. What we have is family tree. This one here is a Coronet apple tree. And the beauty about this tree is that it's a very small rootstock. So you can see the size of the tree. I have a couple of these in my own garden now, and after about, say, 12 years, they're literally only that size, but they give you full-size apples. So they're bred in County Waterford. So they're Irish-grown trees, and they're actually gone all around the world, so very unique. It's the Coronet apple tree. And what you have 2 varieties of apple on the one tree. So this is James Grieve, and this is Elstar. So they're both mid-season apples. So the tree is 5 years old when you get this tree. This is a 2-year-old. But you can see how small and how many flowers are on it. So you will get fruit the first year. Now, saying you get fruit the first year, that will depend on whether you get frost or things like that. So, for instance, you get a very hard frost and the flower is out, the blossom would get damaged. Again, we're often asked regarding, I have one tree is full of fruit and the other is not having fruit. The other tree could be prone to frost damage, was protecting the other one. Now, the trees, before you have fruit, you have to get a flower. It's an impossibility. So if you get no flowers, you'll have no fruit. Another question we're asked often regarding apple trees is that they're not fruiting. Now, if you have 2 trees and one tree, the blossom gets damaged, well then they don't get cross-pollinated, so you can end up with no fruit or very little fruit. So it's important that they both flower at the same time and they don't get damaged. This is the beauty about this tree, is that you have the two trees together, so you know they're going to get cross-pollinated. So that's your apple trees. Another question we're asked about apple trees is that, say, the fruit is split. Yeah, okay. Mushroom compost is organic matter. It's not really a feed. There's a lot of lime in it as well, so if you need to add lime to your soil, it's fine. But it's really organic matter, which I would dig into soil. I wouldn't class it as feed. There's often things people misuse it as, say, farmyard manure, which is a lot of organic matter. It's very minute, the feed in it, so I would say no. I would go back to your grow more, which is a general fertilizer, okay, 777, so it's nice. So you have what do you call it, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium based in the fertilizer. This now is a pear. Now again, it's a little dwarf pear, now a beautiful one, and it's a family pear tree again. There's two varieties on the tree. So there's Conference and Dunley Camise. So little small one. Now, not everyone has a garden, so this one can go into a pot. I picked out a couple of pots here now. This is a nice pot. Now you could go a little smaller. This would suit the Coronet apple tree. Maybe go down a size smaller for this. So again, if you're living in an apartment or you don't have access to you can garden. We've shown you the grow table, showing you the pots. So you can basically have your garden on a terrace or a patio. You don't need to have a big garden to have fruit or veg. Now go to the next one then. This is rhubarb. This is where you have to, if you fail to prepare, you won't get the success with rhubarb. You cannot do enough preparation for rhubarb. Rhubarb does not like dry soil. So in my own garden, I have it planted at the end of the slope, so it's going to be naturally wet. Put them where they're going to like it. Before I planted, farmyard manure, lots of farmyard manure, organic matter, any rotten leaves, anything like, prepare and dig them in. Often people will say to us they put farmyard around roses, for instance. Again, it gives a small amount of nutrients, but it's prior to planting is when you want it, not after, okay? Trick with rhubarb is when you plant a new plant, make sure they're well watered, and don't take anything off for the first year at least, because this is the battery pack up. These leaves are making the energy for the stems here, the petioles here. So if you take those away, it's not going to build up. So again, be patient, take a little bit the second year, but the more you can leave on, that's the energy, so it's going to photosynthesize and make these lovely big stems and build up stronger. Rhubarb plant, you could say they're going to spread mine are about 4 to 5 feet in spread. So that's going to give you an idea what size of area one plant will take. Again, because of the acid in the leaves, there's never a problem really such as pests. Pests tend to keep away because they don't like the leaves, alright? So it's a love-hate relationship with rhubarb. You either love it or you hate it, but it's a great plant in the garden. Now, it just reminds me here of netting and pests in the garden. We try not to use any chemicals if you can. You can cover in prevention. This is a netting. Now, we have a bird friends in the garden. When you have lovely apples, it can be strawberries, it can be black currants. They will, decide to have a nibble. Same, you can use this netting now, can be used on cabbage. The secret is when you cover the plant, don't put it on top, because then pests can still get at it and take a nibble. So it needs to be up. Make a frame or something to keep the netting up. Or you can use bamboo canes, whatever you like, to keep it up off the plant. Especially important when you sow cabbage and you have the white butterfly, because if you put the netting on top of it, then they will just lay their eggs on top of it and it doesn't do the trick. I learned that many years ago, so you've got to make sure and keep it up. So netting comes in 3 different sizes there, so it's available. Anything I'm talking about, by the way, is available in our Carlow store or our Kilquade store and available online. What won't be available online will be any of the little veg packs and tomatoes. As you can appreciate, they're too delicate to go in by courier because one turn over and they snap so easy. So, but everything else will be available in the stores or online. Now I'm going to pick another favourite here, is the raspberry. Now, we were asked what's the easiest fruit to grow, is the strawberry. These are a lovely fruit. I won't say they're the easiest, but if you put the energy and a bit of work into them, they're well worth it. But you have to have support. They grow to about 6 to 7 feet, depending on the varieties. This is what we call a raspberry cane. In this pot, we have to make sure and tell people that, you see, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 canes. So they have to be separated, planted about 1.5 feet apart. and so each one is going to give you one fruit bush. And what will happen with the raspberries, that they'll come up and they'll fruit. The main question regarding raspberries is how to prune them, because you have late flowering, autumn flowering raspberries and summer flowering. Summer fruit and raspberries, when they finish fruiting, you cut them back in the autumn to the ground. These are cuttings now, so these were taken from a previous year's growth. So you actually cut them right back. Cut them right to the ground, anything that fruited. And then what happens, the new shoots will be coming up, they're going to be next year's fruit. If you have autumn fruit and raspberries, so ones that are going for around, say, late September, they'll be cut back in the spring to the ground. And that's how you find out which fruit you have. If you mix them up, you'll just have to wait to see when they fruit, and that's how you prune them. I have another favourite here, fruit. These are all what we call soft fruit. Now, the birds will love them, so make sure and cover them. I have my sacrificial. I have a good few Josterberries, which is a cross between a raspberry, and these are, cross between a blackcurrant and a gooseberries, the Josterberry. And this one is a blackcurrant. We're often asked, how do you prune them? When do you prune them? So you prune, I think the pruning is done on this is done in the dormant season. So the dormant season is from November to February. With raspberries, raspberries cut into the ground. With blackcurrant, you're actually keeping a bush there, so you have a structure. So you end up with a bush something around this height. So the rule of thumb, I usually take out about 1/3 of the previous year's growth out, because they flower on old wood. So the new wood is coming along, and then the following year that's going to be your fruit and stems. So that's the blackcurrants and what do you say, Josterberries fit in the same category. Now, gooseberries. Again, they're a lovely bush, but they're pruned very different to the rest of the fruit. Gooseberries have little thorns on them, so they can be little vicious plants. You can see them. But with a gooseberry, you actually prune the opposite to an apple tree. An apple tree, you're always pruned to a downward-facing branch, but with a gooseberry, you always prune to an up-facing branch. So you basically, I'm just going to take that stem out there. I don't want that coming along the ground. I want them coming up. So you want to even take out the centre, open it out, and then it lets the air move around. So that's the key thing, let the air move around. And feeding wise, again, all these again, use your grow more in the spring. So people don't realise is the size that's grow. This will grow spread between about 5 foot and will reach about 4 foot high. So give them room when you're putting them in. One little thing they're prone to is powdery mildew, and that is caused by if the bush is too clumped together. That's why you prune it for the open centre to keep it the air moving around it. Now, completely different to all the rest of them here is what we have, the blueberry. And the blueberry are a bit like the apple trees. You're better off plant 2 different varieties together, and you'll get pollination then. Now, they don't mind the cold. They're tough. Anyone that's around in 2010, when you get a very hard winter, it makes the plant under stress. And what happens then when the plant is under stress? It actually produces more flowers. So after the winter 2010, there was masses of blueberries because it was so cold, and they produced loads of flowers. Unlike the rest of them, they like the soil moist. So like a peat base or ericaceous compost is what you would use for these. Again, if you're not living where peat base, you can go big tub, put one in the big tub, or you get even bigger tubs and put 2 together, and make sure you don't let them dry out. They like it wet and moist. So unlike a raspberry where it needs a free draining soil, these do not like to be allowed to dry out. Now I have another one, blackberries. You're often familiar with the blackberries grown in the wild. This one is a great addition because it's actually a thornless. So it's brilliant. Again, they're a bit like, say, the raspberry. They need support. So they're big plants, very easy, disease resistant, so easy to look after. Against the wall or a trellis or a fence where you can tie them in, let them run away, and very easy. So very, very low maintenance. All right. Now back to, I'm often asked, what's the best tools in the garden? What do I need? Trowels and a fork, and they're the basic things. You don't need any fancy. There's lots of different fancy implements. I said when you're planting or digging, again, if you're doing planting, use the trowel, the fork for breaking up the soil, removing stones. My trusted favourite. Yeah, work away. Another question coming in. I wouldn't do it, no, because when something's coming to leaf and then you move it, you're causing stress. I would always do it in the dormant season, and I wouldn't be moving them into a tunnel either. I'd be wanting them outside because the tunnel is going to be too warm. Save your tunnel for things that prefer the growth, like tomatoes. All these fruit here are all fine for outside, and they'll take the elements. So what you want to use, your tunnel space or your glasshouse space is what we call valuable space. So you use that to better potential. So what you should be using your tunnel for is growing the things that are frost tender, like your tomato plants, say your lettuce, things, any of your salad crops. You could even have spring onions in that, so you keep the rotation. You could have carrots again, things that you can turn over quicker and get them going through faster. So definitely would not put a blueberry in a tunnel. It likes really harsh conditions, and the colder the weather it suits it better. So just a quick rerun there on what you need to be doing this time of year. Feeding is crucial, okay? So make sure that you feed your plants, and balanced fertilizer, say grow more, that's going to be anything that's in the ground. Anything that's, say, flowering, use your tomato feed. Is ideal. So anything that's going to be fruiting, like your strawberries, you can even use it in the garden if you like. But I prefer to use the grow more, because if it rains, it won't get washed out. And any of your container garden then, try this new Boost. It's great, especially if you're going to be using the organic. I planted the 2 plants here in the Arboretum compost. The one I used over was the Horizon, and I think it's a great compost, great feel to it, because I've often used other organic peat-free compost, but there's a great feel to this, and it even looks like a peat compost, where it's totally peat-free. So I think they've really got the mix right there, and they're guaranteeing then that it's going to lock up the nutrients. So I always say garden by the weather, and it's going to be a good weekend, so I just really say I've given you all the hints and advice, so just get out there and get gardening. All right?